Welcome back, everybody. Another edition here of the Auburn Undercover podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network. My name is Nathan King, joined here by Christian Clemente. Merry Christmas to everyone as we're recording this here on December 29th, and a Happy New Year coming up. Starting to get back in the swing of things in the holiday season. I just had to ask Christian what day of the week it was before we started it, because it's that time between the end of Christmas and New Year's. Or
it's that time, but also when you get caught in the pre-portal palooza madness, and there's a portal entry once or twice a day, and new Connor Lew's declaring for the draft at 8 p.m. or whatever. You get lost in the shuffle a little bit, but we're here now.
Yeah, and once January 2nd comes and the portal's actually open, don't ask us what time it is. Don't ask us what day it is. That's going to be.
It's day 3. We're not going to know the dates of the week.
Correct.
That's day 3 of the portal.
That's exactly true. Well, we have some big news to talk about here, Christian. Probably the biggest news of the offseason, personnel-wise, I would say on offense, because Xavier Atkins was just as important of a player on defense for this coaching staff, so that should not be overlooked. So Cam Coleman is leaving Auburn. That's what we're here to talk about today. On Monday, he, as we and everyone else reported, getting set to enter the transfer portal. It's the same disclaimer that we put on every single one of these guys. Portal's not open yet. And even once they're in the portal, certain guys I think are completely gone, and that ship has sailed. There may be some other guys who could continue to have conversations with the coaching staff about coming back. Just saying I will go to the portal doesn't mean everything. But for all intents and purposes, Cam Coleman is leaving Auburn. We talked about him as one of the 3 highest paid guys to return on this roster, guys that Auburn staff would be prioritizing. It's Xavier Atkins, it's Cam Coleman, and then a quarterback of the future, Deuce Knight. All those guys make a lot of sense. And Christian, as you and I have been talking about today, this doesn't feel like a situation where Auburn is being outbid for a guy like Cam Coleman. Of course, that's sort of the crux of these conversations right now. It's all about money. Makes sense when it's a semi-pro league at this point. Makes sense. That's what these negotiations are about. I think it just comes down to Auburn making a coaching change, Cam Coleman not being familiar with a lot of people in that building anymore, and realizing that he could go play elsewhere for his junior season, most likely his last college season before he goes to the NFL. And certainly that's what we would expect. We would expect him to just be able to go play anywhere and probably end up at a highly rated power program next year.
Yeah, I mean, you just hit the nail on the head. Look, he will maybe get a little bit more money from another program, depending on how things shake out. Could things turn into a bidding war in the transfer portal? Absolutely. But Auburn made a very, very competitive offer, from everything we were told, that matches up with what his expected value is in the transfer portal as he enters. Again, you don't know how things can shake out. Maybe a guy gets a little bit more money. Maybe 2 schools start bidding back and forth and it becomes a little bit more. Point being, Auburn, the money was there. The investment, besides just the money, was also there. This staff met extensively with him, put an extensive amount of work in getting to know him and his family, trying to recruit him, in a sense, to stay, to keep him on the roster, and he didn't. And at the end of the day, I mean, people aren't going to want to hear this, but it kind of is what it is. You can't necessarily blame Cam for wanting to leave, Cam and his team and his agent and all of them for wanting to go to a more competitive program, a program in a little bit of a better spot at this moment, and to be able to put out potentially better film next year. That's not discrediting Alex Golish and his staff and what things will look like next year. But given what is shaping up to be a bit of a rebuild, coming from 2 straight losing seasons that Cam has been here, he wants to go somewhere else next year. And for Auburn, look, they put in the work to try and keep him, but he's not staying. And we've said it before, and people don't want to hear it. But when money's going out, that means you can spend it on guys coming back in as well. Again, Auburn made a very, very sizable offer for Cam, to the point it was approaching 10% of your $30 million salary cap next year. We think that Auburn will pay that much, around that much, from what you've reported, to get Byron Brown in, the USF transfer quarterback, who I'm sure we'll talk about. So if Cam stayed, or if he changes his mind and does stay for somewhere around that number, that's 20% of your salary cap for next year. And I'm not trying to discredit who Cam is as a player. There's a reason he's ranked as the number one guy in the transfer portal. There's a reason Auburn made such an investment to try and keep him, to build the offense around him there at wide receiver. But you only have so much money. And so with him going, it does, on the little bit of a bright side, trying to be somewhat optimistic for folks who think that the world is burning and everything is over. You are going to free up some money there for this roster that needs it. The offensive line needs it. You wrote about the entire reset there. Defensive line will need some help. The edge spot will need some help. Cornerback needs some help. Tight end needs some help. So it is what it is. Losing Cam absolutely stings, and I'm not trying to say like, oh, it's fine, and I'm not trying to puff it up as positive. I'm just saying there are aspects that make it a little bit more okay, I guess. I don't know how to phrase that, but
no, I mean, I think it's okay to look at this. Like I have operated with the perspective this entire time of, sort of a wait and see, because the portal's not open yet. And people are talking today about Auburn losing so many players. And it's like, well, you can't, that's all you can do right now. All you can do is lose. Nobody can gain. Let's see what this group looks like when Alex Golesh can gain. The other side of it is that, and look, for me, this decision by Cam Coleman, if we are to say that when he was at Auburn, he represented so many things, he represented the hope of a better offense, he represented high-level recruiting wins. He also, now this decision represents sort of the return on investment of those sorts of things. You no longer, I just see this as a changing of the guard, because even if somebody like Deuce Knight stays, all those Freeze era highly rated offensive guys that Hugh Freeze just tried to overwork with talent, because sort of as an incompetent offensive coach and play caller, he thought that would make up for it. Pretty much all those guys are about to be gone. And so you are no longer just leaning on, oh, well, you've got so much talent on offense, it surely has to work out. But the other side of that coin is, yes, it hurts to lose Cam Coleman. Absolutely, it hurts to lose Cam Coleman. I am in complete agreement with the people who said, and I feel the same way about Deuce Knight, with the people who said, like, just from an optics perspective, it's important to try to keep a guy like that. Like, just getting, so we were talking to somebody today, and it was like, face on the side of the stadium for the opener in Atlanta when you're advertising that against Baylor. Like, yes, Cam Coleman is a quote unquote franchise player. Now, has he done that yet? Has he been as productive as that yet? No, he's been really, really good, but he hasn't been Jeremiah
a full
Smith.
season. No. Yeah,
correct. But again, that represents the hope. He is the hope of a better offense tomorrow. He is the hope of being, like you said, the centerpiece you build around of Alex Golesh's offense. All of that being said, for better or for worse, it's now going to be completely Alex Golesh's thing on offense. It's going to be completely his guys. The bad news there is that you lose a tremendously talented player. And again, I keep going back to the hope and the projection of Cam Coleman, because we're going to talk about him for a long time as the most talented receiver. Just when you package that word all by itself, talented, to play at Auburn, so much of it is going to be, man, what could have been if you had put him in a good offense. The thing is, I said for better or for worse. I think the upside of that is you can't really get much worse. You lost, and that's where I come down with this. And all these players that you're losing, does it hurt? Yes. Did you want to retain players? Yes. Is Alex Golesh now pivoting his plan? He said that in his interview with Jason. Like, his plan was to retain players. Now he's like, this isn't working as well as I thought it would. We maybe have to pivot a little bit. But at the end of the day, in terms of on-field results, you scored 3 points against Kentucky. You have now had 5 straight losing seasons. Something has to change. And Cam Coleman, of course, they didn't want that to be the change. They didn't want to lose Cam Coleman. He was priority numero uno to try to keep. But I guess I just say that as a caution to people who are, and I totally get it. I totally understand it. But I wouldn't say the world is ending and the Golesh era is already destroyed because you're losing a player and all you've done recently is lose games. Let's see how Alex Golesh does with his guys. And as you kind of mentioned, this frees up a little bit more money. And even before this decision, they were going to have to be gangbusters in the transfer portal. Like certain positions, O-line, D-line, cornerback, you were going to have to clean house or clean up, in the portal when it opens. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a difficult day right now. It'll be even more difficult depending on what Deuce Knight does. Like, I will not blame people for being really, 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 really upset if Deuce Knight leaves. But at the same time, people get attached to players, and I get that. But when you make a coaching change, Christian, and big, bold, underlined word change, you are changing things. You run the opportunity of this happening.
I mean, it had the chance to happen with whoever. If Hugh Freeze was still here, it could have still happened. A lot of these guys probably would have been gone. If DJ Durkin was elevated to be the head coach, could have still happened. If Auburn goes out and hires whoever, it could have still happened. As we've talked about a little bit, and you've kind of reported on, a lot of those kind of front-loaded contracts that Auburn's previous staff had been handing out, it reached a breaking point where now there truly is a salary cap with revenue sharing and then the NIL that you can add on top of that. And so you were going to lose some of those pieces regardless, no matter who was the head coach. And so we'll see what happens. You kind of touched on all you can have is losses right now. It's been an interesting long month of the pre-portal because, like you said, the only thing that can happen is negative. I mean, you can announce some guys being retained, so that is positive. And other schools have done that a little bit more than Auburn has. Auburn has done it with Xavier Atkins, obviously. But realistically, the only thing that can really happen is losses. The portal cycle keeps changing in how they're doing it. So this is the first year where it's just that 15-day window in January. Previously, it was in December. So now what was the time where guys were going in kind of in the middle of the playoff? Now the portal isn't open until later, but it might as well be open now because everyone is just declaring that they're going to go in and their agents are out talking to guys and back channeling and all that kinds of stuff. I mean, I don't even know if there's back channeling at this point. There's no tampering, so you might as well just start calling guys and nothing's going to happen because the NCAA doesn't care. So it's interesting. It's been an interesting learning experience, especially with the coaching staff change, to see how this month operates. And then we'll see how the portal operates in what will be absolute madness because you've lost all these guys and your scholarship number is down so much. And now with the jump to 105 scholarships, you're going to go out and totally redo some rooms. I mean, if Deuce Knight leaves, you're redoing the entire quarterback room. You're almost redoing the entire receiver room. As of right now, it's Bryce Kane, Sam Turner,
Smith brothers,
and Eric Singleton is still here. And we'll see what happens with that one. Some of these rooms are going to get reset quite a bit, and you're going to see a ton of new pieces here. So I don't know. I'm trailing off, but I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'll say that.
Well, we knew, and this goes back to a point Jason made on the previous podcast of like, this is just the problem with contract structure in college football nowadays and not having a collective bargaining agreement and having to do this every single year is that you negotiate with every single player on your roster. You would love to just do what the NFL does and guys are on contracts. You don't have to worry about somebody being in a position where, and I think a lot of people have talked about, okay, well, if somebody still wants to leave and break their contract, you can't hold a kid to that. But at the same time, maybe they'll lose a year of playing. Maybe they'll have to sit out a year, kind of go back to the old transfer rules. But as it stands right now,
something
like that. Yeah, I saw John Calipari had a pretty good idea for it as well. But it's like, as it currently stands, all you can do is what Auburn has done so far, and that is prioritize like the most important guys, try to throw a bunch of money at them. We're now, in my opinion, at 2 out of 4 on those decisions because one of those guys is not at Auburn and Byron Brown. He is in that category of his decision is going to reflect very highly and it's going to really change the dynamic of this team next year. If he's at Auburn or if he's not. If he's at Auburn, that answers a ton of questions, and you've streamlined a lot of things. And then you have Deuce Knight. He's the last one. because that doesn't, well, maybe that doesn't change your product on the field next year. It changes your quarterback room for the future. And Alex Golesh is looking at a guy with 4 years of eligibility who was a former top 50 recruit. And he's like, yeah, sign me up. That's my guy for the future. And obviously you have Xavier Atkins on board. And so if they can go, I don't know, Christian, it was, you and I talked about this a while ago with the 3 guys to retain, which was Atkins, Deuce, and Cam. It's like, if you got 2 out of 3, you were feeling like, 3 out of 3 would have been really, really difficult. So that leaves Deuce. But it's not the end of the world either if Deuce doesn't decide to stay, because he probably wasn't going to be your starter next year anyway. It's just difficult. It was, you said it, like with all losses right now, that's all you were going to do for a month. I think we talked about this on this podcast shortly after Golesh was hired. It's like, this is going to be a tough month for Auburn fans to just sit around and watch their team go by, because that's all that can happen. It's really going to test the patience of a lot of people. And I'm not saying, like, I have no opinion either way of whether Golesh deserves patience on any one player or whatever. Like, I don't know, because we don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know what this team's going to look like. We don't know what this roster is going to look like. Golesh could go out there and get Byron Brown and tell him, hey, man, let me know which receivers you want in the portal. We just got a ton of money from not keeping Cam Coleman. We're going to go pay any guy you want. And they could have a top 5 offense in the SEC next year. Or they could whiff on Byron Brown. They've already lost Cam Coleman. They could lose Deuce Knight and have another rough product on offense, and then we're back to where we started. It's just December, and it's so early to panic about this roster. But at the same time, I understand it hurts to lose Cam Coleman. He was, again, guy on the side of the stadium, like franchise player. I definitely understand the pain of wondering what that guy could have been.
Yeah, on the Deuce Knight point, look, we've talked about it and we've said it multiple times on the board, on shows and whatnot. He is likely your future quarterback of that room. He has all the makings of a future star. You loved what you saw out of him against Mercer, understanding that there were still things that needed to progress in his game. But if you're Alex Golesh and you believe that Byron Brown can win you, throwing out hypothetical numbers here, Byron Brown can win you 8 games, and you think Deuce Knight can get you 6 games, you got to go get Byron Brown. You have to win immediately. There's no time, there's no patience, there's no time for full-on quote-unquote rebuilds, as Auburn is losing a lot of players and everyone's saying it's a full rebuild. You try and be as competitive as quickly as possible, and that's what they're going to try and do. So as much as you love Deuce, and look, Auburn is working him hard, they have a very competitive offer on the table for Deuce that would probably, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but it'd be hard to imagine another school offering him that much to come in and be in the same spot where, Auburn is already going to be a major player for Byron Brown, expecting Deuce to be the backup, but with the chance to compete. Point being, outside of a random P4 school, of just throwing things out here, a Wake Forest or whoever offering him, hey, come be the starter, an LSU or an Ole Miss who would maybe be in a similar spot to Auburn, feels like Auburn is offering him a very good deal. And he might not take it. It might be the same as Cam, where it's just he wants to move on. And look, if Auburn believes Byron Brown will win them more games next year, then that's just kind of what you have to do. Oh gosh, what was your other point? Because I had another point to counter what you were talking about after Deuce. Man, we haven't done a pod in a while. This is bad podcasting. What were you talking about after Deuce?
Yeah, I mean, you just gotta you can't let
the team. Oh yeah, the negatives and everyone being upset about Cam. Look, I totally get it. Right now, Auburn's 4-8, 5-7 next year. Everyone's done. The Alex Golesh ship is sinking. It's over.
I was told 3-9 today. Somebody said
3-9, 2-10. I mean, it's a good thing Jacksonville State's off the schedule next year. I mean, the ship is sinking, according to the fans. Auburn's going to get 5 portal commitments in the span of like 6 hours, and Auburn's going to be 10-2. That's just how this works. That's just how it works from fans and the way things go. And look, I get it. It has been a tough month for Auburn football in terms of portal departures. It's been a tough month.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But next month, the only thing that can really happen is a lot of positives and bringing that scholarship number back up and getting guys. And then it's the off season, and no one loses the off season. So,
yeah. And again, it's like we've been talking about this whole time. I'm not at all discounting the reaction of losing Cam Coleman. Like, was texting somebody today about it. Like, there's no way to spin that other than like, ooh, that hurts. Like, number one player in the portal now. The idea of getting potentially Byron Brown and Cam Coleman together, like you don't have that anymore. That really, really sucks. It feels a lot different than it did when Malcolm Simmons hit the portal or when Perry Thompson hit the portal. Like, this is your centerpiece guy for all of his. I think Cam Coleman is electric. He's had some setbacks. He's not been a perfect player, but even for some of those, like, I absolutely one of the most valuable players in college football, period. You're exactly right, Christian. Like, you get Byron Brown, and again, that you have to do these things though. Golesh has to pull off some positives. Like, they got to go get Byron Brown or whomever if he falls through. Because I'm not at all stamping that a guarantee right now. No way. No way. I am saying it's what I think will happen if you ask me like who's going to be the quarterback for Auburn next year. Got to get a bunch of receivers. You have to get so many offensive linemen, Christian. You have like 4 scholarship offensive linemen right now who aren't true freshmen. Defensive tackle is like building out the transfer board or whatever I called it today. Like, there's no one. There's Malik Autry and Jordan Crawford. That's it. Like, you are at priority level 10 in the portal, in my opinion, for O-line, D-line, and corner. Those are really important positions. And quarterback. Those are really, really important positions. You're not going to get all the guys in the world that you want at every single one of those spots, but you are going to get a lot of guys. This is going to be a huge portal class. And when they start getting those additions, like Christian was saying, when they start bringing in those guys, it'll feel a little bit better. But I caution people, because Alex Golesh was hired this month. He was hired on December 1st. I caution people against judging and ultimately, putting a negative mark on the Golesh era already in the month of December. This was going to happen. You were going to lose a bunch of guys. Yes, it sucks that you lose Cam Coleman. I'm going to sit here and say you'll probably lose somebody else here in the next few days that you're going to be like, oof, really didn't want to lose that guy. But again, you had to have known this was coming with a coaching change. Even without a coaching change, it probably would have happened. And also, it's just the unfortunate part of it, modern college football, we kind of talked about it with Malik Blockton. That guy was Mr. Auburn. But that's just how modern college football is. Like, guys are going to go where the money is, and they're not tied down by anything more than a 1-year contract at a time. So until something changes, this is what we're going to see every single offseason. And Auburn's in an interesting situation too, because of what Christian mentioned about a new staff walking in, seeing some front-loaded contracts, telling guys, hey, we can't pay you that much. We have to hold some money to be able to get a roster together. And guys not wanting to take a pay cut, which is also understandable. And then there's the final caveat and the final note that I continue to make to people, and that is, look, as much as that all this stuff kind of hurts, I don't really think it can get worse. Like, these guys, the staff, this program, they don't win. They just don't. They haven't won any games. They just, all they do is lose all the time. So something has to change. And if Golesh is making some of these decisions and kind of cutting money for some of these guys because he thinks that's what's best for the future, you hired him as a coach, and you got to try to see that through.
Yeah, and this is not to Cam Coleman. This is kind of a separate point, but what you were just talking about, there's never been, in my opinion, better evidence of a new age college football than Robert Woodyard and his departure, a guy who waited his turn for so long, got his turn, played really, really well, but then now you're looking at the linebacker room from Auburn's perspective, and you invest in Xavier Atkins, who's your guy, the leader there. And then at the Mike spot where Robert Woodyard was, do you want to pay him a bunch of money and risk Elijah Melendez leaving? Or would you rather pay your SEC all-freshman team, Mike linebacker, and Elijah Melendez, who's here for theoretically at least 2 more years, and build up the youth of that room with him and Bryce Diaz and DeMarcus Riddick, and then your true freshman coming in, and let Woodyard walk? There have to be tough decisions and tough conversations now, because there's not unlimited money. You can go over the cap somewhat, but you can't go over it all the way. And so Woodyard is kind of that example of an in-state guy who played really well, but you have to make a tough decision and a tough call. And, sometimes it will be for the youth and, going for those guys in that room. Sometimes it will be prioritizing the Woodyard type guys. That's where we're at with college football.
Yep. And we'll see what else this looks like. Of course, it's not even going to be done January 2nd. It will only get crazier January 2nd. This thing isn't going to be done until January 15th, or excuse me, January 17th, when the 15-day window closes. So we're going to have a lot more. This roster is going to look really, really different once the portal opens. I can't imagine we're going to hop on here too often. Maybe talk about a guy like Byron Brown, but we're going to be drowning.
Yeah, we won't be here because this is more of a secondary. We will be at auburnundercover.com. We will be feeding intel on the message boards there, in our different stories there. We'll have a million different stories. As I'm sure most of the people that are listening to this know, that's where all of the stuff is going to be first. That's where it always is first. So while the podcast and the YouTube content might suffer a little bit from us, it will all be at auburnundercover.com. And look, we've still had other podcasts and content that will still keep coming out throughout that period as well. Terry Bowden Show, Coach's Corner, some of those things that Ronnie's been doing with different guests as well. So there will still be content on here, don't worry. But the main content will be over at auburnundercover.com.
For sure. Going to be crazy. Going to be insane. There'll be lots of coffee that will be consumed and maybe not much sleep, but it's going to be crazy. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us on this edition of the Auburn Undercover podcast. We hope everybody has a happy new year and a safe new year, and we'll talk to y'all soon.